Today we're going to be talking 7.3 liter Powerstrokes on the podcast. Really looking forward to it. You guys have been asking tons of questions about different approaches for builds, how they hold up long term, different strategies, different power levels. So I'm going to be joined today by a former guest who was on. He had swapped a 7.3 liter Powerstroke into an 11 to 16 body, and I had a great time chatting with him then. But he's also owned 7.3 Powerstrokes for almost 20 years, and so he's going to be on talk with us about things he did, things he might do different. Tips if you're looking to buy one of these trucks, or maybe you have one, want to up the power level a little bit. So I'm definitely looking forward to jumping into the details of the 7.3 Powerstroke world. Before we get to it, we want to give a shout out to a couple sponsors to help make the Diesel podcast possible. First is Kershaw Knives. We appreciate them offering a 40% off MSRP code just for Diesel podcast listeners. If you go to kershaw.kaiusa.com, use code TDP40, you get 40% off MSRP. It's a great way to save some money, get some cool gear. If you need an EDC knife, something for hunting, fishing around the job site, around the house, they've got you covered with a bunch of different choices for blade steel, blade shape, opening mechanism, different handle designs, and the whole lineup's designed to meet any budget. So we encourage you to head on over there, use code TDP40, save some money, and get some cool gear. Also, we recently started Rugged Threads Co. We wanted to be able to have t-shirt designs, different things on mugs and hats that we would wear ourselves. So we recently launched the company. We wanted to thank everybody that has placed an order so far. It's been really great and overwhelming to see the response. So we got t-shirts on there like what I'm wearing today, a bunch of other ones, or if you're looking for Diesel Podcast hats, t-shirts, different merchandise, we've got it all on there. Wanted to thank you guys for all the support, the encouragement, the orders, for tagging us in pictures. It's been a really cool opportunity, and we wanted to be able to combine the different passions we have, not just for diesel trucks, but other things we like to do outdoors, different things that are going on, and be able to have just shirts and hats that we wear ourselves. So I want to thank all you guys for your support. You're going to find a link down below. Click on over, check it out, and we appreciate all the support and encouragement that you guys have given us. All right, let's get to today's podcast talking about 7.3 liter Powerstrokes. Ben, welcome back to the Diesel Podcast. How you been?
Good, very good. I'm great to be back.
Yeah, I follow you on Instagram, and so I see a lot of the shows and the different things that you do with your truck, which for anyone who didn't catch our other episode, you have a really cool 7.3 swapped, formerly 6.7 Powerstroke, which is totally cool, and I definitely want to chat about that. But I've been talking to so many people who are asking questions about 7.3s, and I thought you'd be great to have on because you have a couple of them, you have a lot of experience with it, and I think for anyone who's out there maybe looking at an older truck, they're say a Ford fan, they're looking at the 7.3s, they have lots of questions, and I think you have a really unique perspective on your approach to owning them, driving them, having fun with them. So I thought it'd be cool to chat with you again.
I I like to think I touch kind of both bases since I have both an automatic and a manual, and they're both in the realm of maintaining streetability, but also you can have a good bit of fun with both of them.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really the big thing, and what started so many people that I know to become diesel enthusiasts was the streetability, where you could have a truck you could tow a trailer with. You could take it, hunting, fishing, to the outdoors, but then you could also take it to the drag strip, have fun with it, maybe go to a dyno. You could do all these different things with it. You didn't have to have just a dedicated, say race truck or a dedicated pulling truck or a dedicated daily driver. It could kind of do a little bit of everything. And I think your approach from what we talked about before is a lot like that. You wanted to keep the streetability with these trucks.
Like, and you're exactly right. My the truck that's started it all with me going drag racing, which I still own the truck. It's an '01 crew cab long box, four-wheel drive, 4R100 with a 7.3. It's an '01, so it's on powder metal rods. But the whole goal with that truck was I wanted to be able to go to the drag strip, but I still wanted to pull a trailer. I still wanted to be able to use it. I still wanted to be able to daily drive it. And the biggest part of being able to daily drive it was I didn't want to be afraid of it in the rain, because so many guys build trucks that are making ridiculous power and attempt to daily drive them and end up losing them because of something that happened in wet or in the winter.
Yeah, That's a really good point, as well. Now, with that truck and putting it together, were there some things that you would tell someone who doesn't own a 7.3, but they want exactly what you said? Some tips or some advice you would give them about either power level, maintenance, things to think about when they're looking at a 7.3 Power Stroke?
So the first thing you should probably go after is the transmission. The 4R100 is a great transmission. It's great to build. It's a great platform. Um, Even some of the 6-liter guys that are very religious to the 6-liter still like the 4R100 over the 5R110 just because it's more durable and the aftermarket supports it better. Uh, Starting with the torque converter in the transmission is the best bet because pretty much as soon as you throw a tune, even if it's not a ridiculous tune, into the truck, the torque converter will not take it. Um, Usually the 4R100 is good for about, I want to say it's like 75 to 90 horsepower over stock, but that torque converter, once the torque converter goes, it sends everything through the trans and you just signed up for a full rebuild. Whereas if you do it ahead of time, put a different torque converter in, put an aftermarket converter in, and figure out what stall you want it at for what you're going to do. Because obviously, if you're pulling trailers versus you never pull trailers, you kind of want to cater to what you want to do with the truck and starting with a list of what you want to do with it and have goals is probably the best place to start. But I would start if I had it to do all over again, I would start with the torque converter in the transmission and then build from there because the transmission that I have in that truck now has been in it since it just had a tuner in it. And it's graduated up to where it's at now. And that truck's flirting with 500 horse at the ground and probably right around 1,100 foot-pounds. Um, and it does it reliably. It doesn't really take much. I think I had to do U joints once.
Wow. Yeah, it goes back to that kind of do all, have fun with it, and putting it together. And I think with the older trucks, it's so different. And we were talking a little bit before the podcast how when you've been around diesel for a long time, you see how the different generations, they had benefits and they had drawbacks. So we think of the older ones, the engines were simpler. There wasn't a lot of, extra things on them, but the transmissions definitely, they're not like the 10 speeds are now or the 6R140 was, or like what the Allisons became. They weren't, you had to address them really early on once you started to add power, whether it was, with the 4R100 or, definitely the 48 REs. And so I think that's a really key point to think about, especially, with a Super Duty is that transmission. But like you mentioned, there's so much aftermarket support for 4R100, so many torque converter companies, transmission builders. There's so many different options, for billet shafts and other things that are in there that it works.
The biggest part that I found, like once I had the trans built, it and that trans was probably built in '07, and I want to say I was just a touch over 100,000 miles on the truck. There's over 229 on the truck now, and like we had talked about earlier, that truck has north of 150 quarter-mile passes on it. And when I'm at the drag strip with that particular truck in the trim that it is in now, I can hot lap that truck. Nothing gets hot. I don't need to gauge watch. And I think that is, at the end of the day, that is the key to building a truck that you want to have fun with is, well, I shouldn't even say just have fun with, be able to work with and have fun with. If you have to be on the edge of your seat and be always concerned with either A, breaking something, or B, it letting you sit somewhere on the side of the road when you're trying to pull a trailer or take the family on vacation, that takes the fun right out of a truck when you're doing that. And the biggest part to avoiding those issues is you have to have your list of modifications be a matched set. And we can get more into that a little down the line here.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask you that next. Like once we do the transmission, and we're trying to hit, say that zone where you can still daily drive tow with it. You could drive it in the winter if you want, but you could also take it to the drag strip. What would the approach or advice be for things like fuel and air and tuning?
So where I would go after the transmission, if you're, I mean, most of these trucks now are starting to be north of 200,000 in the used markets as far as mileage. If you want to go the route of starting to add fuel, you're going to have to do injectors. The factory H pop will support a stage 2 single shot injector, but it won't support it very long if the pump is already starting to get weak. And usually after 200,000, depending how religious the previous owner was, or even yourself, if you've had the truck for a while, where with oil changes and et cetera, you kind of should start with doing the high pressure oil pump. And there's a couple different aftermarket companies out there that have gotten very good at offering a high performance single high pressure oil pump at a more reasonable price than what even Ford offered the factory replacements. Um, I would say if you're going to do that, I would almost say you do both at the same time. Um, it's a chunk of change, but I mean, probably for in the market of about $4,000, you can have a pretty good set of injectors, whether those be single shots or split shots. Um, if you get single shots, you can get away with running factory tuning. If you run single shots, you must have tuning or it will not run properly. Um, if I had it to do all over again, I probably would have went with split shots, but I actually really like the response of the single shots. Um, that's probably where I would go. And then once you start, you can maintain a factory turbo with even the stage 2 single shots and a wicked wheel in it, which and you won't really have to watch EGTs.
When would you when would you look at doing an upgraded turbo? Would it be for power level, or maybe you want to change where the response is in the RPM range?
So this is where there are probably going to be people that disagree with me. Uh, if you can get your hands on a set of headers for the 7.3, they are still out there. It's tracking them down and finding them that could be the fun part. If you can get your hands on a set of headers, they're when I bought my last set, they were around $1,300 to $1,400. But that's about half of what a turbo can cost now, depending what you're going to get. And you can get lower EGTs and better turbo response once you put the headers on. And the headers basically will make the stock turbo spool like a ball bearing.
They as I'm thinking about like when would you how hard are they to put on? Because I'm thinking about like, if somebody just gets a truck and they're going to start working on it themselves, would it be better to say do them if the transmission's going to be out and you're say building the transmission, or it's at a shop, or should you combine it with something else if you're doing that?
I would say if your up pipes are leaking, that's the time to do it. Because more than likely, if your up pipes are leaking, if you're going to do it or you're going to have a shop do it, if the shop's going to do it, they're going to want to pull the cab. Pulling the cab's the easiest. Not everyone has the ease of being able to do that or the luxury of being able to do that. If you can't pull the cab, your best bet is to actually pull the inner fender liners. Uh, You pull the inner fender liners and you actually can get pretty good access. My recommendation for doing them yourself is run the motor, get heat in it. Don't necessarily get it up to operating temp, but once the coolant temp hits like maybe 100, 120, shut the truck off, and more than likely every bolt will come out of the exhaust manifolds. And the factory manifolds don't have any gaskets, so you'll either get I think when I got my last set of headers, think they came with a set of Victor Ryan's gaskets, but I actually chose to go with Remflex gaskets. They're a all graphite. I want to say they're like 50 to 60% crush, and you don't have to retorque bolts after you use those, which that's a common thing of having to go back and retorque once you've run the engine for a while after you've done headers, and that goes for diesel or gas. That's just kind of the way that your torque specs go. But
With that other truck, so you got it. What mileage when you first bought it did it have on the one with the 4R100?
so I bought that truck Monday after Easter of 2006. It had 88,000 miles on it. And I started messing with it almost instantly. I had an '05 6-liter prior to that, and I knew what I wanted. And I was kind of gun shy on the 6-liter. I didn't have the 6-liter give me any problems. But the 6-liter met its demise in an accident, and I was like, okay. I kept looking at six. I was debating about buying a new truck, and then I saw this one, and I was like, you know what? I'd love to get into a 7.3, and then found this truck. It was at the right price, and I kind of saw the potential and wasn't really 100% into the fact that it was white. And now you look at me, and all I own is white vehicles. So I guess you could say it started everything, including the color choice. So, but it, I, I mean, you figure back in '06, I was 20 years old. So I started building that truck on a budget. And up until now, I'm still building trucks on a budget, which I feel like that's the way that you get a better result, because you are sitting there doing your research, spending your time, talking to people, and getting better results and bang for your buck. And also, I feel like when you take it step by step instead of throwing 10 different parts at a truck at one shot, I feel like you see the individual results off each power adder at each stage.
Isn't that a lot of the fun of this? And I think not even just with trucks, it can be a lot of different hobbies when you have to be strategic with what you're spending and you have a goal in mind. I have a great time like immersing myself in learning and figuring out, what stall do I want on the converter? What kind of clutch packs do I want? Which input shaft? What do I want for turbo? What about the different compressor size and turbine wheel size and the injector? And you just get so immersed in that you can, well, one, you learn a ton, but then two, you can really craft exactly what you want versus, if money was no object, and let's say I found a perfect 15 to 20-year-old truck with 10,000 miles on it, and I just wanted to do whatever with, I would just throw money and say, this is what I want for air, fuel, suspension, wheels, tires. And yeah, I'd have it, but I'm not sure it would be exactly what I want. So you're kind of forced to spend the time, forced to learn, forced to research, forced to ask questions when you're on that budget. And I agree with you that you can get more out of it that way because you're so involved in every process of that build.
Like, I mean, I'll tell you right now, I feel like building the Vengeful one in my driveway was probably the best avenue to go. It wasn't the most comfortable avenue in the world to go, but I feel like all of that time being unable to actually physically work on the truck outside when the weather wasn't cooperating forced me to sit on the couch, go online, really do the research, really figure out every step of every way, and do the research to put everything together and make everything jive. And not only on that truck, but also the 01. I spent a lot of time doing the research. And like you said, once you do the research, you know your truck. And when you know your truck, whether it's in stock trim or slightly modified or heavily modified, the better you know the truck you're in, the more you can utilize the performance that it has. And it won't necessarily seem like you're throwing money away. You're actually utilizing the money you've spent to be more efficient. And that's, I think, where that was the end result that I was going for, was not just, I didn't have a power goal that I want with either truck. Did not have a power goal at all. Whatever power it held out to be, great. If there was one goal I had, it was, and when I first started with the crew cab, was I wanted to hit 100 mile an hour and a quarter, which you're in the mid 13s to high 13s at that, which it's doable. It's very doable. I did it with both trucks. So, and they're both similar power. The only difference is the transmission and the weight. So it, like you said, the research to it is almost half the fun and benefit of doing it step by step as you go in the first place.
Common question we get from you guys a lot is, hey, I need a diesel engine. I either, I can't wait this long to get one, or normal place I get stuff from it just takes too long, or they don't have the parts in it that I need. Maybe my truck's not stock, or I tow heavy with it. I don't want to go back with just a stock engine. DFC Diesel is a sponsor of the podcast. We worked with them, hand in hand on doing episodes, answering technical questions. They have a complete lineup of Cummins, DMAX, and Powerstroke remanufactured engines that are set to a standard of ISO 9001 2015 standards, which is a huge deal in the aftermarket. And there's certain levels of quality testing, validation that are required for that. So when you get one of those engines, the type of quality that's built behind it with an industry-leading warranty that's really comprehensive. And the other thing with that is, sometimes the options that are out there, it's a basic OEM engine. You want a little bit more. You don't want to have the same failure again. So there's a bunch of different series of engines that they have, from core, street, tow haul, and also the Speed of Air series, which we've covered on the podcast before. There's a lot of really cool benefits to it. And if you have questions about that, reach out to them. If you don't know the type of engine that you're looking for, if you go to dfcdiesel.com, there's a ton of info there. You can send an email or you can reach out to them. Also, they're working with Speed of Air pistons, which it's the only piston that pays for itself. And there's a lot of really cool technology behind it. So you can add that into your build and be able to get better fuel economy, increase power, increase torque, and better engine life out of it. Some of the most common engine applications or series of engines that they have with that lead time, a lot of them are in stock or they have really short lead times. So you can check your favorite retailer or go to dfcdiesel.com, check them out, see what's in stock, see what you can get. If you have questions, maybe you want to do something that's outside of the normal series of engines, they have tons of choices for rods, cranks, pistons, valve train upgrades, tons of different things. So if you're in the market, definitely make sure and head on over and check them out. How would you rate your satisfaction or happiness now, years after the build, putting, I think you got the truck with about 80,000, it's about 220 something now, so about 140,000 miles on that other one. How would you rate your satisfaction with the build, the happiness with it? Like, as I'm thinking of someone who's listening and they're they're saying, wow, this podcast, like they're talking exactly what I want. This is what I want to do. Will I be happy with it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and investing this time and this money? And you've been there, you've done it twice. And so I thought that would be a great perspective to hear is how happy you are with it.
So we'll put it very easily. I went and I drove that crew cab to go test drive I think it was a 21 Super Duty 6.7 automatic. It was a crew cab long bed, pretty much the same truck, just a brand new truck. And when I got back in my truck, I laid in that truck harder than I laid into the 6.7 on the test drive, and my truck put more of a smile on my face than what the factory truck did, and it outperformed what the factory truck did. I feel like you might not be at the same power that a 6.7 can put out right now, or even or any of the big three, but when you get in the truck, it's going to put a smile on your face because you're the one that put it together. You're the one that came up with, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And at the end of the day, you basically personalized it, and it kind of gives you almost a family tie to that particular truck. I'll say I'm probably on the rare end of the spectrum that keeps a truck for almost 20 years, but I feel like you're going to see more and more of that with the way that new vehicle prices are going. And for what you, even though the like this, the 7.3s and even the Cummins trucks and even the early Duramaxes with the resale value, the way it's gone up, I still feel like with the raised resale value and what you'd put into it for power adders, you can still get more power at the ground, and that's the key. The power at the ground is the ticket. You can get more power at the ground, more reliability, and not have to use that magical 3-letter fluid that everyone absolutely detests. And I think you can do it better and get better mileage.
That's where the aftermarket has really blossomed and done so much because the power, it is addictive. And especially, with new trucks, they're always increasing the torque by a little bit or the horsepower number at the crankshaft a little bit. And you get used to that. And you look back to the old ones, like you think of second gen Rams or 7.3 Powerstrokes or, even like an LB7 and where they were at factory. It's so easy to eclipse what a new one makes for power, for torque. But then it's also that other side of it, which is there's something about the old trucks, the way they sound, the way they run. You feel almost more connected to it. It feels more like, I don't know, there's just something about the sights and the sounds and the smells and just everything of those older trucks that I think is very nostalgic for people and draws them in.
Yeah, there's a lot of nostalgia in running an older truck, and I feel like for the guys now, it's more of this is the truck that I grew up seeing. Either my dad or my grandpa had one, and it almost adds to the entertainment factor of having the truck. Is this was what my grandpa had, and I want to run something like this because it's sentimental.
Yeah.
And I think as soon as you have a vehicle that you have sentimental value in, I think you take care of it more. You feel more attached to it. And not only that, when you like, there's a lot of stuff you see on Instagram. There's a couple memes that go around that say, if you don't look back at your whatever you're driving when you walk into the store, you're driving the wrong vehicle. I'm a firm believer in that because if you and I don't care what you have, it could be anything from a Honda Civic to some F650 crew cab that's insane. It it all kind of, if what you have passion in, you're going to make it what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was one of the huge things with our first podcast where we were focusing on the truck where you swapped a 7.3.
Yep.
And I definitely encourage people, if they haven't seen that one, go back, listen to it. We spent the whole podcast talking about the process for it, how you did it, but you took what you were passionate about and you applied it to a different truck and focused on making it look factory. So you could kind of, in a way, combine that nostalgia and those things that you liked about that older engine in a different in a different truck, a newer truck, comparatively. And I thought that was so cool.
It There's a lot to be said. Like there's a lot that, and I don't know how many of your listeners are into the semi truck side of things, but to the people that are not necessarily familiar with the semi truck side of performance or whatever, um, I encourage you to go look at that because there's a lot of guys that end up either taking an old truck, like an old like a 359 Peterbilt, or even one of the early 379 Peterbilts, and they'll either put a newer electronic motor in it, or they'll take a newer 389 and put an older electronic motor in, or even a mechanical. And it's because they're attached to, whether it's the motor or that particular motor, it's the motor they're comfortable running, or that truck has some sentimental value to it. I feel like it's a lot of people don't necessarily know about that and don't necessarily think that it's possible in a pickup truck. But I feel like if there's an engine or a platform, even like, and by platform I mean a particular truck chassis and body that you're comfortable with, and you want to do something to combine two platforms that you're comfortable with, go for it, because it adds that comfortability to owning the truck. And I mean, I'm not saying everyone has to come and swap something, or I mean, case in point, I didn't, but it was more of a uh, comfortability factor and sentimental factor of, this is what I'm used to, this is what I'm familiar with, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely I wanted to chat about the other truck, the one that I see all over your Instagram, you go to different shows with, because it was so unique. Because most times when we're talking about a swap on the podcast, it's a come and swap. It's
Yep.
so common. I've had a few episodes where somebody's put a Duramax like in a C10 or some other things, but most of the time it's come and swap. So I wanted to have you actually show us that other one for our YouTube listeners, people who are, watching the video. It was so cool, and we didn't spend a bunch of time or really have that opportunity before, but I want to see how clean it looks. Like, I've seen the pictures and different things that you've done, but I thought it'd be cool to show that. And it also goes back to what we talked about earlier in the podcast, which is that kind of pride in the build, the pride in the ownership, and being able to put it all together. And there's so many people that they find inspiration from these builds, whether maybe they just want to find, an older Super Duty and just kind of restore it, make it look clean, do what they want with it, or maybe somebody wants to do exactly what you did. So I thought it'd be cool to take a look at it and kind of give me a guided tour.
All right, let me flip my camera around. So there's the front end shot, which since our last podcast, there's been quite a bit that's changed. But basically, there's there's what the underhood looks like. Contrary to what 95% of people think, it is not a McNasty kit. It is custom fabricated, and I'm the one that fabricated it. The engine cover was a slight modification to one that was already existing. A lot of it is the diesel Super Duties from 11 to 16 never came with hood insulation. That was reserved for the gassers. And so I decided I wanted hood insulation. And as soon as I saw it had the Ford oval on it, I was like, okay, we're going to make this better. And then the hand pinstriping that's throughout, it's kind of there's some history behind the lightning bolts. The lightning bolts themselves are basically there to pay homage to Ford's heritage of the first gen Lightnings. I did not want to have a Lightning clone, but I wanted to just give a little tribute to the first gens, because that truck is kind of what started the performance truck market. And then there's, to say that there is detail throughout, this is your dead giveaway. And not many people, unless you've seen this truck at a show, do you get to see this. But that is hand lettered, and that is my little joke to everyone. What DEF? But the details that are in this, these aluminum rails are actually off the square body Ford pickups. They're actually original Ford parts. You can see the Ford oval in them. The pinstriping that's on either side of the third brake light, that design you may recognize. It actually is the design that's on either side of the hood, on either side of the hood latch, for one. Everything you see that is grabber blue, that is all hand done. It's all hand pinstripes. A friend of mine did that, and I wanted him to outline the letters, because 90% of people just do vinyl inlay, and I wanted to do something different. And then his tracing of the body lines actually carries around the tail lights, because that body line matches into the tail lights.
Very cool. And there's so much detail in this truck.
It's almost too much. We'll get into the interior. The door sills, going with the theme of using as many Ford parts as possible. I had the door sills made, and the emblems that are on them are actually off the 11 to 14 Ford Edge grills. So they are actually original Ford emblems. The lumbar and seat back adjustment knobs are actually original Ford parts. They were not chromed. They were originally chromed from they're out of the F-150s, the Harley F-150s. Original rubber Super Duty Ford mats, and then the pinstriping on the gear shift. The Kentucky Truck Plant employee giveaway cup. And then to the part that I don't even know if you said you've been following along on Instagram quite a bit, but the part that still blows my mind and I still can't wrap my head around is the 3 signatures that are on the dash. The first one was last October down at cruising at Ocean City, Maryland, from Kev Dog from Kindiggit Design. And then the one right below towards the bottom, that was in April at Maple Grove. That was actually Chip Foose. And then the one right above it was at Carlisle Ford Nationals. That is Steve Saline. And I have pictures of Steve Saline sitting in the truck signing it. And when I told him it was manual, his eyes lit up like a kid. He absolutely detests automatics. And when I told him I did this because Ford wouldn't, it was it was like unbelievable. His reaction was just absolutely impressive. And so it will even go to the point that when I go to shows, uh, I do a display because I feel like it's a way to engage people to look at the truck more. And part of that display is my Lego model that I also did myself. And the minifigure inside is even a Ford minifigure that was a SEMA giveaway back when the Ford GTs were campaigning Le Mans. But the the full intent was hood shut, engine off. You cannot tell what I did to this truck, and to maintain a factory appearing look. Um, we'll shut the doors here, and we'll let you guys be the judge of how we did.
It's so, what's so cool about it is I imagine when you're, at a show and people stop by or they walk by, there's an opportunity to inspire somebody to do their own build. It might be different than yours. It could be a different truck, different brand, but that's really, I think, at the heart of being an enthusiast and what has, made you want to build this truck, why I do a podcast, why people listen to it, is we have a vision of what, say, our perfect truck is. And if somebody can be inspired to go build that, then that's the coolest part of it all. And I'm sure you probably have dozens and maybe even hundreds of stories of people who have come up to you, or maybe you've talked to them later and they said, hey, you inspired me to do this build. This is what I'm putting together. And that's probably a really cool part of it.
So if you would have told me when the donor truck was in the accident where this truck would have taken me, I would have never believed you. To say that just the two of us doing this right now, it's an honor that something that I came up with in my head has evolved into something that more people are interested in than even just myself and my friends. Um, like to put it into perspective, I never even when I was in high school, I didn't go to school for automotive, anything. I went to school to be a finish carpenter. And the biggest advice I can give is if you have attention to detail, what you're looking at behind me is within reach. And that's what I like to try to do with this truck and my other trucks. If I can inspire the next generation that whatever they put their mind to, they can do, that's success. And it doesn't matter what brand you like. It doesn't matter if you're into cars. It doesn't matter if you're into pickup trucks. It doesn't matter if you're into semis or all three. Whatever you choose to do, you can accomplish what you want to. You just need to pay attention to the details. Because if you're paying attention to the details, it's less likely that you're going to miss something. And recently I started this. So basically, without the truck that you're looking at behind me, I wouldn't have the other truck that I go to shows with in conjunction with this pickup. I got an opportunity to buy an old Ford cab over, and the main reason I got the opportunity to buy it was because the gentleman that had the cab over saw my pickup on Instagram, saw that I drove truck, and decided to reach out and ask if I was interested in it. And I ended up buying the truck. The rest is history. And now I pull this pickup around with an old Ford cab over, and I'm in the process of putting that together, but we're one step at a time, kind of like this one was. But it really, after going to shows since I really started going to shows in 2019 was when I debuted this truck. And after going to shows for 5 years, my goal with the truck has transformed into kind of being an inspiration for other people, and also showing that you don't need to do what everyone else does to just because it's popular.
Well, it was really cool to be able to spend some more time with you and talk about the other truck, and then also the approach, which I know a lot of people are going to find really helpful as they navigate this. And I've had companies on talking about the resurgence of the 7.3. I've had seen more comments, questions that we get to do more 7.3 content. And so I thought it'd be great to chat with you. So I appreciate your time today, talking about your experience, your build, showing us the truck. For people who want to find you on Instagram, how can they find you, be able to take a look at your pictures, videos, maybe ask you questions that they might have?
I am Maurer, MAURER underscore 7.3 underscore racing on Instagram. If you look up either the hashtag truck13 or the hashtag the vengeful one pickup, those are the hashtags I use for the cab over and the pickup behind me. I also am in the process of working on starting a YouTube. There's quite a few YouTube features that were already done within the last 3 months on not just this truck, but the cab over itself also. If you want to reach out to me on Instagram, send me a message or whatever, I can send you links to those. And if anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm an open book. I'm a firm believer in if I can help, I'll try. That being said, I can't answer every question. I don't own a shop, but this is solely me. So, but I can give you advice off what I've done and kind of where I've gone with things, and that's kind of how I like to approach it.
Well, I appreciate you chatting with me today, Ben. It was great to, like I said, learn more about the trucks and everything. I love following you on Instagram. Keep me updated on your other builds and, any cool things that you put together, or maybe some information. Maybe somebody reaches out to you and you say, Patrick, you need to talk with this person. They got a really cool build, and, stay in touch with us and let us know how things go.
Definitely. Will do, and look forward to talking to you guys again.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com. Use code TDP40 to get 40% off MSRP. It's a great way to save some money, get some cool gear. They've got a bunch of different knives for EDC, hunting, fishing, things you can use at work, around the house, and a whole bunch of different choices for opening mechanism, blade steel, blade shape, handle design. And we appreciate them offering that code to get you 40% off. So just use code TDP40 at Kershaw.kaiusa.com. Also, we recently started a apparel company called Rugged Threads Co. You'll find a link down below. They'll take you right over to it. You'll find Diesel Podcast hats, different merchandise, and also other things that pertain to automotive. Some of them don't, but we appreciate all the support you guys have given us as we launch this brand new company. I wanted to thank you guys for the orders. The reception has been really overwhelming and humbling, and really encouraging to us. So you're going to find a bunch of different stuff there, like some of the t-shirts I wear on the podcast, the hats, and things like that. So thank you guys for all your support, and we look forward to rolling out more designs and getting the orders headed to you guys as quickly as possible. Also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters: Tyler Loewen of 23 Diesel, Colby, CUTTERUP, Rob, J Cole, all of our other Patreon supporters, all of you who subscribe on YouTube, podcast apps, follow us on social media. We appreciate all your support here in year 8 of the Diesel Podcast, and look forward to bringing you more of the content that you want to hear in 2024. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.